Hello, welcome to another clip from Things That Go Bump in the Night. As we continue talking about on the vein of haunted dolls. Hopefully this will be this last one in the series, but it just wants to give you an understanding of what's going on. And tonight I want to talk about Robert. Now, Robert was the doll, supposedly, in which the series, the Chucky series, a little kid running around, looks like a little child with a big old knife, scaring everybody, doing nefarious things, committing nefarious acts and evil acts. Now, do I have any proof that the author was the inspiration for this? No, I'm just going based upon what has been written about Robert, the things that were documented about Robert, and to come to find out, if you want to know anything else about Robert, Robert is in behind a sealed glass container. He is in the museum in Florida, the East Paracellum Museum in Key West, Florida. You can go there and you can see Robert. Now, the thing about Robert is if you're going to take his picture, they say you make sure you get his permission, because if you don't get his permission, evil and nefarious things will happen to you and you will come under a curse. And the museum claims that it's got many of letters from people that have written to museum asking for help, saying, how do I get rid of this stuff? Because they had taken pictures of this doll. So the magical component of these dolls is by the inspiration of witchcraft. So we understand this because supposedly the owner of the doll was a Eugene Otto, and a Eugene Otto was a practitioner of black magic. And supposedly he acquired this doll, but it had a curse that came along with it by a disgruntled slave, and he put a voodoo curse upon it. So he brought it in with him, and for a man, a practitioner, you would think that would be good with him. But the doll had a mind of its own and a lot of different things in which it could do. In fact, they said that this doll would speak in a deep, chilling voice. It would move independently. This is not new. We talked about this when it came to the Annabelle doll. From the little spirit, they said that they wanted to inhabit. Annabelle Higgins was inhabiting that doll. But we understand and realize that that's not a human spirit. That was a demon spirit. And it's the same way with this doll and all other haunted dolls. They all are inhabited by a demon spirit. It is because as a born-again believer, when you die, we go to one or two places. You go to heaven or you go to hell. You don't go in between. So I've said this before, but right up front with you, that as a person that talks about this and everything else, I come from a Christian perspective, and as a Christian perspective, I go by a biblical reference. And in the biblical reference, it does not talk about ghosts as far as staying here on some celestial plane trying to grab your attention. No, those are evil spirits. And just as the Annabelle doll itself could move itself into different positions, you actually have an outside agency that was inhabiting or coming in and moving that doll's hands in different positions to get notoriety, to grab your attention, so that your focus will be on that doll or on that thing or that individual. Now, it gets to be interesting because supposedly the thing's antics got pretty bad that this guy had to lock him up in an attic. Now, some of this stuff sounds like an urban legend, and so how much of it is true, I don't know, but let's just say that what the authors that are writing about this, that's what they were talking about. But anyway, so supposedly now another family somehow comes along, finds this doll, brings it into their household, and then the doll starts to do different things. It would change positions, had an eerie laughter that would come out of it, had an eerie gaze that it would just stare at you. So eventually they ended up putting it in a glass case tightly and sealed away, and its resting place is now down there in Florida. But that's what we talked about, stuff like this. So that doesn't happen. Yes, can a practitioner of evil ask an evil spirit to come into a doll and have its way with them. Yeah, I mean, we've got them from all cultures and all walks of life. You can talk about haunted dolls in which voodoo doctors would put in a spirit around in a doll that would walk around just like a little child that would walk with them. Understand it, it's not the doll that's doing it. It's an external agency that is living and housed inside of that doll. And the strange thing about it is it's funny that when these haunted objects come into our house, like dolls and stuff, they bring something with them. And so a lot of times strange things and paranormal activity will start to surround or enter into a house in which there was nothing there at all, but would enter in by bringing this object in. And then, of course, that spirit would have right in the house, and then it would start to do things and gather your curiosities or create things. But the one thing that you have to realize, especially even as a Christian, that the whole purpose behind the stuff like that is that the demonic spirit is a tormentor. He's part of the clan of the devil to kill, steal, destroy. He's part of that clan that wants to rob you of everything that you have. So in the end, he'll end up trying to torment you. A lot of times he'll come in quietly, but they always end up giving themselves away one way or another. So it's not only in the case of, let's say, dolls that move around in the house, in which now we've seen a couple, and there's a few more. There's one that's called Lily there, but there's, and like I've said before, in every culture, they have their names in which they call these dolls, nookies, cookies, whatever else they want to call them, is part of what they do. So the thing that you have to remember is if you all of a sudden you start having paranormal phenomenon happening in your house and it was never there, it might be a good idea start looking around and seeing if there's anything that you brought into your house that may create or cause these events that are going on around her, and get rid of them. Get rid of it. And the other thing is, if you're taking a picture of it, just like these poor people, they would take a picture and then these spirits would follow them. Attachments. A lot of times, credibility is given by this, and people subconsciously, they pick this up, and those spirits will follow them around. And so that's what I'm saying. We've got to have the strength and the volume in our voice to be able to make a stand against the spirits of the devil. God hath given us power over these spirits. And a lot of times, that's what we've been talking about this, and we started things to go bump in the night, especially so that we could have an understanding. But yet also, God did not leave us to be ignorant of it. The Apostle Paul said this. He said, "Brethren, I would not have you be ignorant of the wiles of the devil." In other words, he wants you to understand what demonology is, to understand what's going on around you. But he did not tell us this to leave us helpless. He's given us power, and he's given us authority over these things that when they come around, that we need to be able to make a stand for that. So the next time you're out there and you're looking around and you pick up a doll and you get some eerie feeling about it that says, wait, I need to put this down, put it down. Next time somebody tries to bring something in your house, you're like, no, get rid of that. If your spirit man is going off, say, no, it goes out. Don't bring it in, or even allow that insubjection to come into your household. So we've got to realize that, like I've said this before, what's drawing a lot of different things. Right now, people are drawn to the paranormal. Why? Because there's going to become a massive move of the paranormal that's going to invade in America. It's already starting. It's captivating the hearts of the people and bring you into different things like that there. I've talked about this before. I think I was watching one of the programs one time before, and they actually had a doll that they claimed that was haunted. And they would show you the doll, they would put it in someplace, and you'd hear a bunch of noise, and you'd go in, and there'd be stuff all over the ground and on the floor, or something that's similar to like that. So when you see stuff like this, but they would also do things to instigate and to provoke something like that, to get a reaction out of those things. That's just plain ignorance. God's given us power and authority over the things, but not to play with the things. And they would instigate stuff like that. Just by the instigation alone and the incredibility, you can bring attachments or familiars. We'll go over that eventually. That would come into that life into that area over there. So yeah, you get a bunch of likes and you get a bunch of all that other stuff, but is your soul really worth a bunch of likes? Is your soul really worth a bunch of plays? Is your soul really worth the capital gain that you're going to get out of all this stuff from the likes or the commercials that are on there when you yourself are there? So it comes down to what do you do when you play with something and you bring it home and it wants to stay home and it wants to torment you? That how once it's in the house, how do you get rid of it? Or how do you get rid of it once it's come into the house? You've got to have the understanding that we have power and authority over those things in the name of Jesus Christ. And in that power of Christ, we can cast those things out, command them to go, break their power and everything else like that. But I would not say that it's a good idea to challenge them. I'll close with this real quick. I remember there was a story that not Smith Wiggles, but Lester Sumrall. He was a famous Christian that did a lot of deliverance and seen a lot of demonic manifestations. But he relates this story about a young buck that was gung-ho. And he ran into a temple that was there with all sorts of demonic gods, spirits, demons that was in this place, dedicated for it. They wanted it there. It was there. He wasn't listening necessarily to that of the Holy Spirit. Ran in there and flat out challenged them, commanded them, and provoked them and commanded them to go. And the spirits just promptly picked him up, threw him about 10 feet in the air. He hit a wall, slid down, pride broken, crumpled up, and basically walked out and couldn't figure out why he wasn't successful. Well, if God didn't tell him to go in there, if you run into it, that's one thing. But if you go in and you provoke something that you're not prepared to provoke it or have the belief structure for it, beware of the consequences that come with that. But hey, listen, as born-again believers, we have the power, we have the authority over these. I don't recommend that somebody would provoke something just to get a reaction out of it. Now, we'll cover some more of that later on, but I just wanted to just close that out and talk about that. And further things we're going to be talking about and things that go bump in the night, I'm going to talk about different manifestations and different things that happen and how we can deal with it. So, hey, leave me a like, a share, a comment if you like it. Comment about the video. Comment maybe you had something that was of that same type of manner and how you dealt with it, And that's important that we encourage each other in strength and encourage one another. But hey, until next time, y'all be strong in faith, and we'll talk with y'all later. Bye.